Thank you, Mauricio, for that beautiful message in Spanish. And now I will read it in English. It's taken from Parashat Pekudei. Shabbat Shalom to all. The last few weeks have been so complicated for me, with many worries and concerns, both personally and professionally, without adding the concerns about the conflict between Russia and Ukraine and its consequences for the world economy. On top of that, the government of my country, unfortunately, is distancing itself daily from its best commercial and political partner, the United States. This has led me to reflect on this week's portion Pekudei, as it feels like a thick curtain of cloud is spreading over humanity, bringing uncertainty to all our communities. In the beginning, when the Borei Olam created the heavens and the earth, it says in Genesis, in Bereshit 1, verse 2, now the earth was unformed and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God, Ruach Elohim, hovered over the face of the waters. It seems to me that I've read this portion I don't know how many times, yet I've never really connected it with Shemot. Shemot, Exodus, and the story of the Mishkan is like the story of creation as a microcosm of the world, when the Eternal ordered with his mouth and things were made. In Bereshit, he ordered with his mouth like vibratory waves, or however you want to label it, and the stars, the sun, the firmament, and the earth were made, with the culmination, with the climax being of man's creation, man. Then at the end of all his creation, God decided to contemplate his work and to bless his creation by creating the Shabbat. With this in mind, we see in the book of Shemot that Israel was in dense darkness, a thick darkness. It was a nation of people without form and order, empty. Even though they were unaware, the Ruach Elohim, the Spirit of God, moved among them. In the darkness called Mitzrayim, Egypt, which symbolizes our narrow-mindedness and our limitations that do not allow us to advance in our lives, we lived in physical, mental, and spiritual slavery, contaminated by the idolatry of Egypt. And we were being immersed in practices far from the inheritance that we had received from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The story indicates that Pharaoh decided to rise himself up as a God-man, and then to take the lives of babies, seeking the extinction and elimination of any trace of Israel, so that it would be a forgotten people, as many other peoples had become extinct. However, again, the Ruach Elohim, as described in Bereshit, moved among us. The Eternal decided to send Moshe, who, despite having lived in darkness for 80 years, was illuminated in the midst of the burning bush, which did not burn or go out in defiance of physical laws. And this meeting was in a holy place where Moshe's life changed forever. He became the chosen leader, God's instrument to guide Israel out of Egypt. This is when we see the 10 wonders that the Eternal sent, which would peak with the death of the firstborn. Israel was then blessed with wealth from the Egyptians to leave their land, but not before celebrating Pesach and eating matzah. Again, we read that they suffer yet another siege from the Egyptian army. And in their darkest moment, when there was no physical or logical way out, the Eternal showed them their salvation. He opened Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds. Now the Eternal would begin to manifest in this physical plane, even though he does not have a body, a shape, a form, or any physical aspect of him, he decided to manifest himself through fire, lightning, cloud, and lightning at Mount Sinai. Even though Israel recognized Moshe as their envoy and that the Creator was above any known idea of their God, they decided again to fall into disorder, emptiness, and darkness with the incident of the golden calf, breaking the commandments and breaking the relationship of love with the Creator. Now, amid this story stands the Eternal, who continued his communication with Moshe in such a way that showed him that he was a remedy so that Israel could focus and move away from the idea of an abstract God to a God who is practical, real, and alive, and who can be perceived and felt with the senses. This is how the Mishkan was created, but not without it first being made clear that the Shabbat is above the Mishkan. The Mishkan offered certain opportunities to remake and reestablish the communion between Israel, man, and the Borei Olam, the Creator. Remember, the relationship with God had been broken from the moment we failed to obey the first commandment. However, despite our decision to break our relationship with Him, God still wants to dwell among us. The fact that He established an earthly or temporary dwelling that could never contain God has two aspects. First, it shows God's love for us and covers the error of those who, because of their guilt, feel unable to approach God. Second, it stopped the destruction caused as a result of the incident of the golden calf. It was necessary to reestablish the one-on-one personal relationship in the midst of the community. Why? Because of acts of violence and death, and because we are human beings. Although the slaughter had stopped, we're not sure if everyone accepted these acts by the Levites of killing their fellow man without question. So now the Mishkan became a common goal, a motivation to work hand in hand, a reason to work united without the need to consider one more important than the other. That was the idea behind the giving of the half shekel, and above all, to give us a national identity, which our people have until today: the temple, the menorah, the kior, the laver, etc., all the utensils. By working together, it allowed the people to reestablish their relationship with each other and to turn the page on previous events, allowing them to move forward as a cohesive team. However, until now, we see that God had remained hidden and that He had only manifested himself at Mount Sinai, the cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night accompanied them. But after the golden calf, the cloud disappeared. Once the works were finished, Moshe saw this microcosm as the Eternal did in creation. They do the work, as we read in chapters 25, 8, 10, and 23. Do, make, they did the work. And chapter 31. Now the work was finished, as we read in chapter 40, verse 33. It was contemplated and it was blessed. Chapter 39, verse 43. When the work was fully completed, chapter 43, verse 34 says, "Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting. The glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle, and Moses was not able to enter the tent of meeting because the cloud abode thereon. And the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And whenever the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, the children of Israel went forward. They went on throughout all their journeys. But if the cloud was not taken up, Then they did not journey till the day that it was taken up again. For the cloud of the Lord was upon the tabernacle by day, and there was fire therein by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel throughout all their journeys. After an episode of darkness, the light returned, the divine presence, just as the divine presence manifested itself in creation. With this idea in mind, it says that Moshe could not enter the tent because of the dense cloud. This is how the book of Shemot ends. Then we begin Vayikra, when the Eternal called him from the dark place that Moshe could not enter. It says, Vayikra Moshe v'yedaber Adonai elav me'ochel moed. And the Lord called to Moses and spoke to him from the tent of meeting. You know, the dark processes that are necessary in our life are because they generate more life. This week, I listened to a class by Rabbi David Peretz, and I was amazed by this idea, which I will paraphrase. Do you know where a baby's life is formed? In the darkness. Do you know where the human being physically achieves his full development? In darkness. For the baby is in darkness inside his mother's womb, but his mother walks in light. Darkness allows the baby to develop, to complete his process, so that when she finally gives birth, he is ready, in optimal condition. We can also say that even about chickens who are inside the shell in darkness, or of the seeds that become in the earth that becomes plants. They're grown in darkness. Today, we are living in darkness. For some, it's a source of fear, concern, and even terror. But for those of us who trust in the eternal, it is a process of forming something much better. As Tehillim, Psalms 20, verse 7 says, some trust in chariots, some in horses, but we praise the name of Adonai our God. And in Malachi 4:2, but to you who fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings. What are we so worried about? Are we in the dark? Is it about our health, money, family problems? Remember, the Ruach Elohim, the Spirit of God, moves among the waters amidst our problems. Though we may not see it, he is in the midst of us. Shabbat Shalom. And as we end the book of Exodus, we say, as our cantor said, Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek, be strong, and let us be strengthened. Again, Shabbat Shalom.